Ladies and gentlemen, will you please welcome to the stage the Right Honourable Esther McVeigh, Member of Parliament for Tatton.
Well, hello everybody. What a lovely, conservative, warm welcome here. Now, it is a real pleasure to be here today to support Robert Jenrick for this, the leadership of the Conservative Party. And it's great to see so many people here supporting him too. Now, choosing the leader of a party is an important decision for the party and for the country. And that's what we've got to do, and we've got to get it right. Robert Jenrick is that man. I truly believe so. And you know what? Never has this decision been more important. Let's look in just 4 weeks what the Labour Party has done to this country. Yeah, just 4 weeks. They have scrapped winter fuel payments for millions of pensioners. They have now scrapped the social care reforms. That is a betrayal of pensioners. They are going to carve up the countryside. They're going to impose new planning permissions. That's a betrayal of the countryside. They're going to surrender free speech at universities. That's a betrayal of our young people. And the chaos they're about to impose on schools with VAT on private schools, well, that is going to let down teachers and pupils across the country. And also, they've just brought in a new minister for prisons who thinks 2/3 of prisoners should be out on the streets and not in prison. And let's not forget that fake 22 billion black hole. Why have they come up with that? It's because they're planning to impose tax increases. Can I say there has been a betrayal of the British public? 50 times they denied they were going to do that during the general election campaign. Let me say, if they've done that in 4 weeks, what will they do in 4 years? And that is why it's so important we get the right leader for the Conservative Party, one that can hold the Labour Party to account. And that person will have to have intellectual rigour and capability. Robert's got that. You're going to have a work ethic second to none because it is a relentless job, and he has got that too. You're going to have to be a great media performer. Robert is that. And also a communicator to explain what it is we're going to do and how Labour have let people down. And he will do that by persuading the public, not provoking them. These are the things that Robert can do. And I will tell you, I know Robert well. I've seen him up close, so as to speak. Apologies, Mrs. Jenrick. That was because he was my PPS in the Department of Work and Pensions during the period that we halved unemployment. He was the part of the team that did that. And he was my Secretary of State in the Department of Communities, Housing and Local Government. And he took those tough decisions. But you know what? He needs to listen too. He needs to listen to the public, to what they have to say, and he has to accept what he hears and then accept their truths and look at a way that we solve those problems, all of which I know he can do. And I think you know he can do, or you wouldn't be here now. We also share the fact that we both grew up in a family that had a small business. And you know what? We appreciate, therefore, the cost of living. We appreciate value for money. We know you've got to live within your means. We also know that small businesses are the bedrock of the community and the country, and we will take those tough decisions that are needed. Robert Jenrick is the man. I know he can do it. You know he can do it. But let's take a look now at him travelling the 4 nations of the country. Here he is. Okay, you've seen him on video. Let's welcome him here in person, Robert Jenrick.
Hi, everyone. Hello. Thank you, Esther. Hello. Hello, everyone. Hi. Thank you. Well, thank you, Esther. That was absolutely brilliant. It's wonderful to have you here, and thank you. Thank you to all of you for coming here from right across our country. But can I begin with this? By addressing those of you, my friends, my neighbours, my constituents here in Newark. Some of you I last saw on election day when we were pounding those pavements. Thank you for everything that you did. Thank you for knocking on all those doors, for having those conversations. Thank you for posting those leaflets through letterboxes so beautifully. As a result of everything that you did, we defeated Labour. We squeezed reform. We defied the polls, the odds, the national tide, and we won here in Newark. And so it is fitting that I am here today in the town and with the people to whom I owe so much to launch my campaign to be the next leader of the Conservative Party. And I've spent my whole life here in the Midlands, living in small towns like Newark. And these places and these people like you, like me, have shaped my politics. People in Newark are hard-working. They are doers. They are makers. They are people who get up early in the morning to earn a living. They are proud of our history. They would never denigrate our country. They treasure family and do everything in their power to look after their children and give them the best possible start in life. They embody the best values of our country. I'm in politics for that, for them, for you. It's why, as I wrote last month, in response to those people who said that we should cut out the members of our party in this process of choosing the next leader of the Conservative Party, that no, we should never do that. I want to breathe new life into our party with a new spirit in which we respect the role of the membership of this party. And we'll do that in many ways. We'll do it, for example, by ensuring that it is members who choose candidates for elections once again. I want to grow this party. I want to become a mass membership organisation once again, with new members of all ages and in every part of our country. And I know we can do it. In 2010, the Conservative Party won young people. And I firmly believe, that with the right approach, we can persuade young people again that it is in their interests to be Conservatives. You know, there are too many young people today for whom the dream of home ownership feels out of reach. They're sat at home in their childhood bedrooms, waiting to get on in life, waiting for their lives to begin. And we Conservatives have to change that. That is one of the reasons why I'm so proud to look around this room today and to see so many young Conservatives here for a reason, because they are backing this campaign. Now, we need to get the machine of the Conservative Party back into fighting shape, because it let too many people down, members and candidates at the last general election. And I'd like to take this opportunity to say and to pay tribute to those Conservative MPs who fought at the last election, who lost their seats due to no fault of their own, decent public servants who worked for years to support their communities. We must never let this happen again. We must be better. We can be better. Now, we've got elections coming up. There will be local elections next year. Then there will be Scottish and Welsh elections. Even the general election is only a matter of years away. We've got to get this party back together. That is why we're here today, to get the party back together and to get going again. I know we can do it. But let's not be too downbeat. It's only a few weeks into this new Labour government, and already the hard left of the Labour Party have got it in for Sir Keir Starmer. There's a cabal of rebel Labour MPs and independents who are already gunning for Sir Keir. And of course, amongst them is one MP for Islington, who is publicly seething that Sir Keir has waltzed into number 10 without giving them so much as a thought. But let's not waste too much time worrying about poor Emily Thornberry. But seriously, in this campaign, I am going to tell you some hard truths. But let me begin with this. This is a great country with a proud history. When we came into office 13 years ago, the Labour Party had left this country's public finances in the worst possible state. And we turned them around, thanks to the decisions taken by David Cameron. We reformed our schools such that today our children are the most literate and the most numerate in the Western world. We empowered head teachers against huge bureaucratic resistance to take the decisions that were necessary to put the interests of their students first. We created free schools, and I founded one myself here in Newark. And despite the backing of Sir Keir Starmer, we ensured that Jeremy Corbyn, a threat to our prosperity and national security, was never Prime Minister of this country. We stood by brave Ukraine in their hour of greatest need. We did that as Conservatives. And we did more than that. Thanks to Boris Johnson, despite all the opposition and the paralysis, we got Brexit done. Now all of this begs a big question. How is it that we have just suffered our worst ever electoral defeat? And to answer that question, we do need to confront some hard truths. There's many reasons, but the principal one, the primary one, is that we broke our promise to the British public to deliver controlled and reduced migration and the secure border that the public rightly demand. We allowed the cycle of broken promises to continue. And as a minister, when I concluded that I couldn't secure any more changes to our legal migration system, I resigned from Cabinet last year because I, for one, was not willing to be just another minister who makes and breaks promises on immigration. But it was about more than just that. Let's acknowledge that today. In 2019, we also promised a strong economy and NHS. But growth was too low, and taxes were too high, and we lost our hard-won reputation for sound financial management. And we must never do that again. We promised to level up, and we got started on that generational mission, aided by great Conservative mayors like Andy Street and Ben Houchen. But we were knocked off course by the pandemic and by global economic crises. But I believe, more passionately than ever, that talent is spread evenly across our great country, but opportunity is not, and we must return to that agenda. And critically, despite spending more money than ever before, too much of the British state simply wasn't working. Nowhere exemplifies this challenge more than the NHS. We are spending 20% more money. There are 20% more doctors and nurses in the NHS than there were 5 years ago. And yet we are treating no more patients. We've poured cash into the black hole of waste and inefficiency. We allowed new quangos to arise. We allowed poor management to go unpunished. We saw some of the structural flaws in the system ourselves. But out of fear of our opponents mischaracterizing our efforts, we shirked the difficult decisions. We allowed the lions on the front line of the NHS to be let down by the donkeys in the back offices. Above all, we forgot that the NHS is a public service, not a religion. So if we are in office again, if we re-enter government, we must never make those choices again. We must never shirk the difficult decisions. We must never jump at our own shadows. We must invest in the NHS, but we must ensure it works for the British people. Now, Labour say all these problems are the fault of the Tories. Of course they're not. They're definitely not. These challenges didn't arise in 2010, and they're not going to magically disappear in 2024. The roots of these problems are not red or blue. These are challenges faced by most countries across the West. Their roots are in geopolitics, in new technology, in the battle of ideologies. But one thing I do firmly believe is this: the particular problems we face as a country stem from the fact that the British system is not working for the British people. And I'm not going to lie to you. For most of my time as a politician, I believed our political system basically worked. I was elected 10 years ago in a by-election here in Newark. I was honoured to be a member of the government of each of the last 5 Conservative Prime Ministers. I prided myself on making the system work, on getting things done for my constituents and our country. I was the Housing Secretary who, along with Esther McVey, ensured that the number of new homes being built in our country was the highest level for 40 years. We slashed red tape on small businesses. We got investment again on our high streets and in left-behind communities the length and breadth of the United Kingdom. I created the world's most admired homelessness programme to try to eliminate rough sleeping. But in the last 2 years, I have come to see that a different approach is needed. As Community Secretary during the pandemic, I saw the British state was both overbearing and powerless. As Housing Secretary, I saw that we had a planning system that meant that we couldn't get the critical infrastructure in energy or transport built, even if it was overwhelmingly in the national interest to do so. And at the Home Office, I saw more strongly than ever what was going wrong in our country. I saw that the British state was either unwilling or unable to perform its most basic duty, to secure our borders and to keep the British people safe. As Minister for Immigration, I saw dangerous people coming into our country and the state unable to deport them. I saw the British state finding it difficult to build united and cohesive communities. I saw intercommunal violence, extremism. I saw challenges of diminishing public trust. I saw an economic model that was fundamentally failing, whereby imported foreign labour was leading to immense pressures on our housing, on public services that our constituents wanted, like access to GPs and dentists. And I saw British workers' wages being undercut. Look, if mass migration was rocket fuel for our economy, we would have just lived through the greatest age of economic growth. But we haven't. And too many intelligent people refused to say it like it was. Too many economists were more worried about GDP than GDP per capita. Now, I fought relentlessly for the solutions to these problems, solutions that most people agree with. And yet our political system was either unwilling or unable to effect the change that our country needs. And in the end, I concluded this, that the system that I had been part of, that I had upheld, was completely broken and was contributing to our national decline. Now, Labour are in power. They have the landslide that is necessary to effect the radical changes that our country needs. But it's not going to happen. They have too many delusions. If anyone tells you that the grown-ups are in charge, just look at Ed Miliband. Even in the last couple of weeks, as you just heard from Esther, Labour have been dishonest. They've lied about the state of our public finances. They've begun to break their promises made to you, the British public, not to raise your taxes. They've declined to set a timetable to increase defence spending. They've created housing targets whereby we build less in our cities, precisely the places where homes are needed the most and the greatest productivity benefits could be achieved. They've released thousands of dangerous criminals from our prisons. And on the altar of net zero, they've compromised hundreds of thousands of jobs in our oil and gas industry. And already, the starting pistol has been fired by the far left of the Labour Party. They are gunning for Keir Starmer. And these people, remember, these are people who despise the West, who disdain British culture and history. These are people who deny basic biology and common sense, and who dogmatically oppose everything that we Conservatives hold dear: opportunity, freedom, self-reliance, free enterprise. It's for all those reasons and more that our party remains our country's best hope. But our party has to change. We have to acknowledge that. It's got to change. The shape of that change and the principles and values that we must stand for are already becoming clear. I believe that the British people and our Parliament must be sovereign. I believe that if you come here illegally, you should be detained and removed within days. I believe that we should be building more prisons and that we should be locking up more serial offenders, not releasing people. I believe that we can and we must make our economy grow faster. And unlike Labour, we do this by building more homes in our cities. We do it by having more reliable, cheap energy produced in the UK. And we do that by reducing subsidies for offshore wind and investing in new nuclear. I believe that we give our people better skills, real skills, not low-value degrees. And whilst I believe in a safety net, there are too many people on welfare in our country, and we need to give them the dignity that comes with work. I believe that our adversaries are growing stronger, and we must respond to that. We respond to that by investing more in our armed forces, by investing at least 3% of GDP in defence, and doing so more intelligently than we have in the past. Above all, as a Conservative to my core, I believe this. I believe in a small state that works, not a big state that fails. Now, friends, our victory here in Newark a few weeks ago tells us a lesson. Each of those MRP polls that said we were going to lose, all the pundits and the commentators who said it was impossible to win here, they were wrong. They got it wrong. We won. And those same pundits, those same pollsters and talking heads down in Westminster, they now say that our party cannot win again. They say that our problems are too intractable. They say we're too divided. They say that Keir Starmer is destined to be our nation's Prime Minister for a decade or more. Well, if there's one lesson of our success here in Newark, it's this. Nothing in politics is certain. Just as there are no final victories, there are no final defeats. And each and every one of you is testament to that. Those of you who helped in my campaign, who put their heart and soul into it, who fought for this community, for our party, for our nation, knows to your core that we can do this. So enough of defeatism. We can win. And just as it would be wrong to have the drag anchor of defeatism, so we must also be grounded in realism. And we all know in our hearts that we have a mountain to climb. We lost millions of votes. We lost millions of votes on the left to the Labour Party and the Lib Dems. We lost millions on the right to Reform. Trust, hard won, is easily lost. And it takes time. It takes energy, it takes commitment to win it back. But we must do that. Our party has to change a lot. Otherwise, there is no future for us. If we do change, let's change in keeping with our best traditions and values, which include generosity of spirit, respect for institutions and one another, a preference, a desire, a deep yearning for national unity, not division. We can ensure that those best traditions endure. And if we do change, if we listen to the British people, if we show that we have listened, if we show that we understand that we made mistakes and we've learnt from those mistakes, if we show that we understand the challenges facing our country, and that uniquely we have the serious answers and the serious leadership to stand up to them. If we show that we are united again, as a broad church, but a broad church with a common creed, if above all else we show that we have changed, then we can win again. And we can and will win again. Not in 10 years, not in 2 terms, but we can win the next general election. That, my friends, is why I am standing to be the next leader of the Conservative Party, to change our party, to win the next general election, and to secure the future of our country. Change, win, deliver for the people of Great Britain. I would be honoured if you would come with me on that journey. I would be honoured if you would join my campaign. Thank you very much. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you very much. Thanks. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you, everyone. Thank you. Now for the hard bit. We've got some questions from the media. And so I think the first one is from my good friend Chris at GB News. Chris, welcome to Newark.
Thank you. Well, asking to hear up, Jenrick. Chris Hope from GB News. Great to be here. You want to remove illegal migrants within days. How would you do that? Would you bring back a better Rwanda scheme? And yes or no, would you pull out of the European Convention on Human Rights? And just a question about the current news in Southport and elsewhere. Is Sir Keir Starmer right to blame the far right for the troubles across England? Or did he miss an opportunity to understand why that's happening?
Yeah, well, thanks, Chris. And I know that you are an avid reader of my columns and my speeches, and so you will know that I have been saying things on the ECHR for a very long time, and my position is crystal clear on that one. On Southport, let me say this. I'm a father of 3 young daughters, and this was the most horrific crime. And like I'm sure everybody in this room, my thoughts and prayers are with those victims and their parents right now. I think that there is an important lesson from this, which is in this incident and in others across the country, they are revealing that there is too much disrespect for our police and for law and order. And I want to back the police. I want to ensure that they can take the robust action they need against these individuals and against people like them in all of the incidents we've seen in recent months right across the country. Because I do not want to live in a country where incidents like this, where disturbances are happening ever again. On the ECHR?
Yes or no, would you leave?
Well, I think I've said that many times, absolutely. Yes, now the next question we've got is from Aggie LBC. Hi, Aggie.
Hi, thanks very much. Aggie Chambray, LBC. You've talked about your politics changing in the Home Office. There's been some talk of you almost being radicalised by the Home Office. Can you tell me whether there was a specific moment where things shifted for you? And just on Southport, do you have a reaction to Nigel Farage's comments in the last few days? He suggested the truth was being withheld from us and said the violence wasn't just down to a few far-right thugs, but a product of wider societal decline.
Well, look, on Southport, I think that we have to make sure that when these incidents happen, regardless of who the perpetrators are across the spectrum, we back the police and we ensure that they do not happen again. Now, on the question about the Home Office, as I said in my opening remarks, I had been very concerned for a very long time about the state failing to deliver core functions on behalf of the British people. But that came home to me very vividly at the Home Office. I walked into a Home Office that was in ashes, where we had thousands of people breaking into our country in flagrant abuse of our laws, where we couldn't deport people back home to their home countries, where we were spending billions of pounds on hotels. The British public were rightly angry and frustrated by that, and they wanted their politicians to do something, and when they said they would do whatever it takes, to mean it. That's ultimately why I resigned from Cabinet. Because when I made that statement, I meant it. And I want the next Conservative government to mean it too, to secure our borders and to put an end to this farce once and for all. Now, I've got a question from Dan Martin at The Telegraph. Dan. Oh, hi, Dan.
You mentioned biology briefly in your speech. I'm just asking about the Olympics. Do you think that people who have failed gender tests should be able to compete against women?
No, I don't. No, I don't. I think we need to be very clear. Look, there are politicians in our country today, there are politicians in our government who do not know basic biology. We Conservatives take a different view from that. And in every ministerial job I've done, I've tried to find ways to make sure that common sense prevails. When I was Housing Secretary, I began to change the law so that no new public building in this country could be built without female toilets and spaces. We need to make sure that whether it is in female spaces or competitive sport, we are standing up for women, for women's rights, and for basic biology and common sense. Now, we have Christian Calgie from The Express.
Hello, Mr. Jenrick. You've launched your campaign with more tangible policies than many of the other candidates, but your pledges to pull out of the ECHR and to get building many more homes are perhaps the two most contentious policy areas among Tory MPs. So are you worried about alienating Tory MPs and therefore not getting to the members' vote? And secondly, on the threat of violent demonstrations this weekend, should people avoid going out to stay safe?
Well, I don't want people to cow in the face of extremists or violence. That's not the country I want to live in. Absolutely not. I want the police to do their job, and I want the public to respect the police. But on your broader question, look, my campaign is based on telling hard truths. And I think that's what the public are yearning for. The public are tired of politicians who compromise at every turn, who just split the difference, who never get things done, who don't take on the big challenges facing our country. So whether it is about stopping illegal immigration, whether it's about stopping the crime, whether it's about building homes, whether it's about ensuring that our armed forces have the proper investment that's necessary to keep us safe on each and every one of those issues, my campaign will ask the tough questions, it will find the serious answers, and it will show leadership to the country, which is what I think the Conservative Party must always stand for. Now, we have, last but not least, we have Jack Elson from The Sun. Jack.
Thank you, Mr. Jenrick. Jack Elson from The Sun. Can I just press you on Chris's point about whether, as Prime Minister, you would resurrect a Rwanda-style deportation scheme, or whether you keep it scrapped, as Labour have done? And secondly, you've also talked in the past about wanting an annual cap on net migration, but I don't think you've ever put a number on what you'd like that figure to be. Nigel Farage says he wants net zero. What's your number?
Well, I came up with the idea of having a legal cap on migration set by Parliament, so I'm always pleased to see Nigel Farage follow where I started. But I said that it would be in the tens of thousands. I'm open to it being less. The key thing, though, is that Parliament decides the cap, and every member of Parliament votes for it. So you can hold them to account. Do they believe in lower migration or not? And we can finally begin to restore public trust and confidence in our legal migration system. And on Rwanda, I would hope to bring it back. But look, it's going to be 4 or 5 years away. But what is absolutely at the heart of my policy is that if you arrive in this country illegally, for example on a small boat, you will be detained. You won't be put up in one of Yvette Cooper's new hotels. You'll be detained, and you'll be removed within days. That's the difference between what I stand for and what this new Labour government stands for. And lastly, we have Claire from the Mail.
Hello. Would a Tory party you lead be one that Suella Braverman, Lee Anderson and Nigel Farage were comfortable in?
Well, it will definitely be a party in which my good friend Suella Braverman is comfortable. Look, I want to build a big church, a big tent for this party. But it has to be a strong tent. I want to ensure that we are a big church, but it has a common creed. And so we have to believe in conservative principles again. I never want to be going onto a doorstep at a general election in the future and people not know what our party stands for. That's the essence of my campaign. If a member in this room put on a blue rosette under my leadership, they would know what it stood for, and they would have pride in wearing it. And when someone opened a door to them, they would also know what it stood for. That's the change that we're going to bring. And if we can make the Conservative Party the natural home for all small c Conservatives in this country, anyone who cares about a smaller state, lower taxes, secure borders, stopping crime, building homes for young people, the family, strong defences, the core tenets of conservatism, then we can and will win the next general election. Thank you very much, everyone. Thank you for coming here today. Thanks for being part of my campaign. Thanks, everyone. Thank you. Thanks. Thank you.